that shit I'm saying, man.
Are you buying or selling gold, silver, and platinum coins or bars? Did you know that you don't have to deal with
Quote, how can people be expected to have faith in Trump if he won't release the Epstein files? That post by Elon Musk this afternoon gets at a serious question, prompted by MAGA fans, among others, after the Justice Department asserted in a memo that convicted sex offender and multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein did not blackmail high-profile clients, was not murdered before he was found dead in his jail cell in 2019, and in fact had no client list. Despite the fact that the very same administration officials are now asserting there is no there there, many of them were the ones ginning up the controversy before President Trump was reelected and while they were in office. The Justice Department memo, first obtained by Axios, also comes 1 month after the billionaire Tesla founder took to his platform X as his alliance with President Trump dissolved. Quote, time to drop the really big bomb. Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason why they have not been made public, unquote. Musk deleted that post 2 days later, but the new memo has Musk posting this meme, among others. It's a guy putting on progressively more clown makeup with the text, we will release the Epstein list, we just need more time. The Epstein list is on my desk. There is no Epstein list with full clown regalia. The desk part refers to a February clip. The list is on my desk. A February clip from Fox that was played of Pam Bondi. Take a listen.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
But here was Attorney General Bondi earlier today.
I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
Trump was asked about the memo today by a New York Post reporter, and he expressed indignation.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
Mr. President, the reason people are talking about this guy is because people serving in the highest levels of your administration have been talking about this guy for years and talking about how the Epstein list needs to be released. Here's then Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance in October 2024.
Everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism, is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein
These
list.
guys are
That's
fucking
an important thing.
characters.
Kash Patel on a podcast just over a
Actors.
year before he became FBI director.
Why is the FBI protecting
Damn, I
the
don't
greatest
trust it all.
terrorist,
Never
the
did.
largest scale terrorist in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Dan
Yeah.
Bongino, a former Secret Service agent turned right-wing podcast, now the FBI director.
I just dropped my soda
I'm going to let this story go because of what
on my computer.
about Bill Clinton's claim for Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it go.
Hold on, stop. I'm marking it off.
Bill Clinton's spokesperson released a statement in 2019 saying that the former president, quote, knows nothing about the terrible crimes. We should note the presence of one's name in the files does not mean they were involved in any way in sex trafficking or having sex with any of Epstein's victims. Here's Alina Habba, now interim U.S. attorney for New Jersey. This is her in February.
Yeah.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names, that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking.
I got
I'm
it.
shocked that none of that's been released. In February this year, Attorney General Bondi teased the imminent arrival of the Epstein files, and President Trump's eldest son, Don Jr., posted about the news, quote, LFG, an acronym for Let's Effing Go. A week later, the Trump administration invited a slew of conservative mega influencers.
I got it.
to the White House before he began
I want to
the
blow it.
at a batch of documents labeled the Epstein Files Phase
Yeah.
1, but none of it was a smoking gun. The vast majority of the information had already been made publicly available. CNN's Evan Perez reported in March that Attorney General Bondi directed FBI agents, in some cases, to drop their work on China and Iran and focus on redacting the files before their release. Remember, Trump made part of this his platform. Here he is during the 2024 campaign.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would. Yes, I would. I think that would be less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
What drives us to the edge? Athletes push limits in the most extreme conditions. So does Anchorman. Howling exhales, delivering extreme performance. Embracing every fall.
It's fine. It's fine. I got it in time.
Because we constantly push limits. How to drive your prime.
At Grand Canyon University, we believe in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your sacred vocation of counseling, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. GCU's Masters in Counseling online degree programs
Awesome, that's what I'm gonna do.
ability to serve in a wide range of environments, from private practice to community mental health. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University.
I have one of these.
Affordable. Visit
Drug addiction counseling.
GCU.edu.
But LCSW.
So what's really going on here? I mean, what's really going on? Well, experts such as our friend Julie Brown from the Miami Herald, who's been covering Epstein for years, say that the notion of Epstein having an easy-to-access client list is likely a red herring. And that's what the Trump administration is relying on, that there likely isn't a list per se. But they are also now relying on the fact that because it's MAGA influencers who often put forward so many falsehoods, legacy news media won't push the point, that while there might not be a list, there are certainly files that can be released. There's a trove of information that the Trump administration is right now refusing to share. Information that could well point to the powerful folks who availed themselves of the sex trafficking victims of Jeffrey Epstein. If you go, for example, to the FBI vault online, you can see that there are 22 files containing thousands of pages. Most of them are heavily redacted. Now, sure, of course, redact the names and identify the victims. But why not make the victim testimonies public? As Julie Brown points out, there's still so much we don't know. From the investigations by U.S. attorneys in Miami and in New York, witness interviews in the U.S. Virgin Islands and New Mexico. Brown writes that there's still more evidence that hasn't been published, including, quote, Epstein kept video cameras in most of his residences, and Epstein's autopsy, nor the report of the investigation into his death, has been made public. So, while there may not be an official client list to be released, as the administration is now saying, there's a lot of extra information that is not being made public, despite Trump's Justice Department basically now saying case closed. This isn't going to go away.
When Pam Bondi went on television and said, I have a videotape of kids getting abused, I followed this case closely, and I know a lot of the people involved, as I told you. I had no idea. I didn't know that. Really? Thousands of children got raped? Who raped them? Where are the rapists? Like, why aren't they in jail? What? This is the Department of Justice. Yes. That is so crazy. This is honestly one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And I just think it's very dangerous to play around with this stuff. Like, very dangerous. Well, I don't want a revolution, but if you wanted a revolution, this is how you would act.
All right, Jamal, what do you think hearing that from Tucker?
Well, first of all, Tucker is being dangerous by alluding to something like a revolution when we're talking about the MAGA people, because we know that MAGA forces have been willing to use violence in pursuit of their political aims. We saw it on January 6th. You know, Gretchen said something a second ago about is Trump covering for Pam Bondi. But the question also may be, is Pam Bondi covering for Trump? We just really don't know. Donald Trump has been very forceful. He's a great television performer. When the question of Epstein comes up, every time he dissembles, he attacks the reporter. Remember before, he'll release the UFO files. He'll release the JFK
Almost put this on. Just bought it.
Epstein files.
I have to put drinks on another table.
Do that. Innocent people may get wrapped up in that. I just think something's going on here. We gotta keep asking the questions until we find out what's really happening. And they should just release the files.
No.
I mean, right, I mean, that seems to be the point, Gretchen, at this point, and this is something that has been spun up, right, by some of the very people who are now saying, I mean, when Kash Patel and Dan Bongino came out recently and tried to downplay the Epstein files, they were eviscerated by the MAGA base, right? And now this is putting the whole thing on steroids. Far-right activist Laura Loomer, Gretchen, we know Trump listens to her. She has been hammering Pam Bondi on social media. She posted, "How come we can't talk about what a dumb line bimbo Pam Bondi is? JD Vance, please encourage President Trump to fire Pam Bondi. She's a disgrace." So what do you hear when you hear this? I mean, look, Laura Loomer, we know, has had very specific, tangible influence on Trump on big decisions.
Yes, in national security, specifically in the last few months. I do think she has Trump's ear. So, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Trump seemed to be protecting Bondi today, but I think one other really important point is in this second administration, we have seen a lot of MAGA supporters of Trump come out and be totally against him on really big issues. And what I think is fascinating is that he can go after people who are in groups, like lawyers, like members of Congress. I'll primary you if you don't agree with me. But with these single influencers, he's not doing that. And I think that raises a huge question about whether or not he has the power to actually silence them.
Right, and Jamal, I guess the whole question is there really no there there? Or is the question, who is covering up for whom?
That is the question. Listen, what is sobering is that Donald Trump, if this were normal time, Donald Trump, he's turned around on Ukraine, and there are people in MAGA who are upset about that. He was in this relationship with Elon Musk, who's now turned on him and wants to start a party, and so that could maybe peel off people. Now you've got the Epstein files, and all these things that would normally take down a regular politician. Donald Trump seems to be able to survive these things. I mean, he's such a political force, it doesn't really matter. But what does happen is the people around him are the ones who catch the brick. And so the question for Pam Bondi is this going to limit her ability to either be an effective attorney general or to even keep a job as attorney general?
You mean my Lanta pill? Huh? Take my Lanta pill.
Lives depend on precision. Attention to every detail powers the bigger mission.
My name is Michael Kuzel. I've been at Johnson.
From giving out free gold and silver in the streets of New York.
I got a 50 gram, 14K gold nugget that I'm going to give away for free to you. Sir, would you like this gold nugget? Of course not. Here.
Going viral for fighting another jeweler for scamming his customers.
Where's my fucking money? Motherfucker! Where's my fucking money?
Drax NYC is one of the most controversial jewelers in America, with an empire worth over $300 million. But it wasn't always like this. Before Drax became one of the loudest, most unapologetic personalities in the entire industry, he was just a 7-year-old refugee in New York who barely spoke a word of English and had no idea where the future held. And this is the story of how Tax and Agachon became Drax NYC, like it was born in 1986 in the city of Baku, which at the time was still part of the Soviet Union. His father was a homicide detective and his mother was a journalist. And with 2 stable jobs, Max had a comfortable childhood. But by 1991, the Soviet Union was collapsing, and Azerbaijan declared independence almost overnight. And all of a sudden, the stability Agachani family had known disappeared instantly. Staying in a country going through that kind of upheaval was really dangerous. So in 1992, they made a decision that would change everything. They were getting out and going to America. To improve their chances of getting accepted, they applied as Jewish refugees. Despite
You gotta be kidding me.
in a predominantly Muslim country.
I think it is, bro.
His mother is half Ashkenazi Jewish and half Georgian Jewish. He describes himself as half Jewish and half Muslim. Raised Jewish with a Muslim father and
It's
a
not
Muslim
turning back
mother,
on.
the family landed in New York and settled in Queens, which in the early 90s was one of the most diverse places on the planet, packed with immigrants from
I
every
can't believe
corner
it.
of the world, all trying to build new lives. And right in the middle of it was a 7-year-old kid from Azerbaijan who
Okay.
didn't understand a word anyone was saying. His first day of school, he sat at lunch with nothing to share, while all the other kids ate their sandwiches and traded snacks. But something in this new country caught his attention, something that would shape the entire trajectory of his life. The 90s were the golden era of hip-hop. You couldn't go
Alright.
anywhere without hearing music from Biggie, Tupac, and the Wu-Tang Clan. But for young Maxet, it wasn't just the music that pulled him in. It was the entire culture that came with it. The fashion, the attitude, the swagger, but most importantly, the jewelry. In 90s hip-hop, jewelry wasn't just an accessory. It was proof that you have made it in life. And for a kid who had just arrived with nothing, that became the dream. Soon Maxet wasn't just admiring the culture from a distance. He became a part of it. Maxet started writing graffiti in the walls of New York, and he chose a tag that would follow him for the rest of his life. Trax, a name that would eventually become synonymous with some of the most expensive custom jewelry in America. But all of that was still years away, because first, he had to figure out how to actually break into an industry that has no place for him. Fast forward to 2004, Trax had just turned 18 and he'd spent 11 years in Queens absorbing American culture and trying to figure out how to make the American dream come true. And the one place that he thought could make his dreams come true was a single block in Midtown Manhattan, 47th Street, also known as the Diamond District. The Diamond District is one of those places you can't understand unless you've seen it in person. It's literally just one block, 47th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue, but crammed into that space are over 2,600 independent businesses, jewelry, exchanges, diamond dealers, gold buyers, watch repair shops, wholesale operations, and retail storefronts. It is one of the most intense and competitive business environments anywhere in the world, and about 80% of all diamonds entering the United States pass through this single block. Since the 1920s, the Diamond District has been dominated by Orthodox Jewish families who've been in the business for generations. The knowledge gets passed down from father to son, and so is the booth location. And the whole system is designed to keep outsiders from breaking in. Most 18-year-olds in 2004 were thinking about college, parties, and relationships, but Trax was thinking about how to crack his way into the Diamond District. However, with no connections, no family history in jewelry, and exactly $1,500 in savings, things were looking impossible. But Trax had an idea, and he took that $1,500 and bought a digital camera. See, eBay was exploding in 2004, and people were making fortunes selling random things to customers all over the world. But Diamond District jewelers weren't paying attention. These guys had done business the same way for decades, relying on cash transactions from walk-in customers. The internet wasn't even on their radar, and Trax saw a gap nobody else was seeing. He could be a bridge between old-school jewelers and online buyers who wanted Diamond District quality without a trip to New York. Trax's plan was simple. Walk into the Diamond District, photograph jewelers' pieces, list them on eBay, and find buyers worldwide. If something is sold, the jeweler gets the price and Trax takes a small cut. But things didn't go as planned. Most jewelers laughed at Trax and didn't even let him finish his pitch. But Trax kept going, booth after booth, until one jeweler finally decided to take a chance on him. The jeweler agreed to let Trax list a gold ring worth $750 on eBay. And the deal was simple. If the ring sold, Trax would pay him. And if it didn't, he owed nothing. Trax photographed the ring, created the listing, priced it at exactly $750 with no markup, and then he waited to see if his whole theory would actually work. And to everyone's surprise, the ring was sold. And when the money came through, Trax paid the jeweler every single penny. But then came a hidden expense which Trax wasn't thinking about, because Trax...
Oh, yes. We're to hotwire this or something? You gonna be here for a while?
Would you make? It's that classic mistake. You went from running a restaurant to your restaurant
had to pay eBay's fees, which was about $120 out of his own pocket, which meant his profit on this first sale was actually negative. Trax had done all that work and ended up with less money than he started with. Most people would have called it a failure and moved on. But Trax understood that even though he lost money, he gained something far more valuable, the jeweler's trust. Think about it from the jeweler's perspective. Trax shows up out of nowhere with some bitch about selling jewelry on the internet, and then he actually went out and did exactly what he said he would do. So without a doubt, that jeweler was going to work with Trax again and tell other jewelers about him. Trax was slowly building his reputation one transaction at a time. And over the following months, the operation grew and more jewelers started working with Trax. And each deal made the next one easier. Along the way, Trax was learning the trade from the ground up. Diamond grades, gold carats, how to spot a fake, how to negotiate, how to read what customers actually wanted. Everything those Diamond District families spent generations passing down to their sons, Trax was figuring out on his own by grinding every single day. By 2005, Trax was 19 years old and ready to make the leap that would define the rest of his career. He'd spent a year proving himself in the Diamond District, building relationships, learning the business from the inside, and saving up enough money to take the next step. And then, Trax opened his own store, an actual physical location in the Diamond District. For a 19-year-old with no investors and no reputation beyond what he'd built in the last year, this was an enormous risk. But Trax had bet on himself before, and he was gonna do it again. And just like that, Trax NYC was born. But opening a store was just the beginning. The real challenge was figuring out how to survive in one of the most competitive retail environments in the world. With over 2,600 businesses packed into a single block, most of them run by families who've been doing this for generations with relationships and capital Trax couldn't match. Competing on their terms was a losing strategy. So, Trax needed a different angle. And once again, the angle he found was the internet. Trax started a YouTube channel in 2007, where he promoted himself and showed off his custom jewelry. But these weren't typical promotional content just showing off products. These were genuine educational videos breaking down exactly how the jewelry industry works. Trax did something others weren't doing. He started telling viewers how to identify fake watches from real ones, breaking down diamond grades, explaining what markups jewelers actually charge. Trax was pulling back the curtain on an industry built on secrecy for over a century, giving away for free the kind of knowledge that had only been passed down within jewelry families. And when education wasn't enough, he wasn't above throwing in a few first traps to get eyes on the channel. Other jewelers thought he was crazy for giving away industry secrets, but Trax figured if he was the guy educating people, he'd be the guy the people will trust.
If you own any gold at all, I want you to screenshot this image. And I'm going to tell you another thing. I'm not a thief. There are a lot of thieves on this street. I'm not one of them. I spent $200 million plus over here. 3 o'clock tomorrow. If there's one person on this street that I owe money to, I'm going to wash their feet right in front of my shop at 3 o'clock at 64 West 47th Street with this water.
People were tired of feeling manipulated, so Trax NYC started to resonate with them in a way traditional jewelry marketing never could. The videos got views, the views brought traffic to the store, and the traffic converted into customers who felt like they already knew Trax, like they could trust him, like he was the rare, honest dealer in an industry full of sharks. But Trax wasn't just building a YouTube following, he was eyeing a specific niche where his whole life had been leading, which was custom hip-hop jewelry. Trax fell in love with hip-hop jewelry as a kid in Queens, and now he was actually in a position to make those pieces himself. And he understood the aesthetic in a way most traditional jewelers never could, because he grew up inside the culture, not just watching it from the outside. The only problem was high-end custom hip-hop jewelry was dominated by a handful of elite jewelers charging $100,000 to $200,000, sometimes $500,000 for a single piece. That price was great for artists at the very top, but for rappers on the come up, those prices were out of reach, and that gave Trax a chance to position Trax NYC as an alternative selling legitimate, high-quality custom pieces at the prices that artists could actually afford. And then the artists started coming: Young M.A., Kodak Black, Joyner Lucas, Black China. China, and soon the bigger names followed, with the likes of Cardi B, Busta Rhymes, Snoop Dogg, and Mark Wahlberg, and Trax made sure every celebrity visit became content. He filmed the whole process from the consultation, the design, the production, and the big reveal. Every custom piece became a YouTube video. Every video brought more eyeballs, and every eyeball brought more customers who wanted to be associated with the same jeweler their favorite artists were using. And by the mid-2010s, Trax NYC had become one of the most recognizable names in hip-hop jewelry. And GQ recognized this and hired him to appear in their Celebrity Jewelry Critique series, where he would analyze the pieces that famous people wore and give his unfiltered professional opinion on whether they were real or fake. These videos got massively popular because they combined celebrity gossip with insider expertise, and Trax was the perfect host because he had no filter and wasn't afraid to say that some famous person's chain was actually garbage.
The Leibelson Double Standard. Millionaire Leibelson built a massive...
Let's see the Wall Street Journal.
So, if you were president, would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
The Epstein files were supposed to uncover financier Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking and blackmail operation.
What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information.
And yet, since President Trump returned to office, the Epstein files have revealed nothing of the sort, for the excellent reason that there was no such operation.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
Its non-existence is, ironically, the most important thing to emerge from the document dump, and makes clear that the conspiracy theories which grew on the campaign trail and were then amplified by Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel have failed to deliver what they hoped.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images.
In the latest release is a memo in which FBI investigators conclude that there was no evidence in Epstein's residences and bank accounts of a trafficking ring or of sex videos supposedly used for blackmail. Meanwhile, another revealing document, this one highlighted by the independent journalist Michael Tracy, is an 86-page memo from 2019 by prosecutors with the Southern District of New York. Intended to marshal evidence against Epstein's associates, the memo notes that Virginia Giuffre, the accuser primarily responsible for stories of a sex slave and blackmail ring, who's tragically since committed suicide, was in fact a fabulist and who was totally unreliable as a courtroom witness.
Before Miss Maxwell was arrested, there was a meeting in New York, and Virginia and I were there. And I said, "Did you file a police report?" Virginia said, "No, I could not do that. I could not do that. I was around rich and powerful people."
That Epstein's crimes were confined to himself and a few enablers, chiefly Ghislaine Maxwell, was always intolerable to the influencers and politicos who want to attribute all bad things in the world to dark cabals.
I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American.
Epstein is a key that picks the lock on so many things.
You have all this contact with a foreign government. Were you working on behalf of Mossad?
Meanwhile, a coterie of radicals in the U.S. House, including Thomas Massie, Ro Khanna, and Jamie Raskin, continue to